Hi, this is a follow-up video to what's happening with my Royal Enfield Interceptor that I took delivery of, and it kept on cutting out, so I sent it back to the dealers to be sorted out. And what happened was, I rang up the dealers Monday morning. I was told that the meeting, yes, they would come and pick it up, but it was going to cost me £40, 40 UK pounds. And that the meeting they held every week was on Tuesday morning. And after they'd had that meeting, they could work out when they could be bothered to come and pick it up from me. Now, I've been complaining on the Facebook group. I've been going through it, not complaining, but just explaining to people what the problem was on the Facebook group, the Royal Enfield Interceptor UK Owners Group. Over the weekend, and I didn't realise, but actually Royal Enfield are actually in that group. And mysteriously, a few hours after I'd been told all that, I got a phone call from the dealers saying, "Oh, actually, we've got a van ready now. We can come and pick it up now." You can read what you like into that. Okay, so they came and picked it up. All good. I didn't hear a whisper until Friday, and even then I had to chase it up, by which time I was getting pretty agitated. And I just want to go through with you what happened. Right, now the first thing that happened was I rang up at 9:40, I rang up the dealers, and there was no reply. I couldn't get a reply at 9:40 in the morning. So when I rang up to book the bike in, they told me that it was going to cost me £40 to have it picked up, but that I could contact Royal Enfield Roadside Assistance, and they would be, possibly, they didn't guarantee it, but they said talk to them and maybe, you can get a refund off them. Right, bearing in mind that I have a bike that is basically, I'm not prepared to ride because it keeps on cutting out. Okay, so having failed to get through to the dealers on Friday morning, my next stop was Royal Enfield Roadside Assistance, whom I rang. And I spent a lot of time on the phone, about 6-7 minutes on the phone with the lady who answered. And she said, "Oh, well, I'll try and get you a number for Moto GB, who of course are, the big bananas regarding Royal Enfield in this country." So I said, "Oh, thanks very much." And I held on. And I said to her, "Look, can I not get this information off the internet?" And she said, "Oh, well, that's what I'm doing." And so eventually I got a number off her, which I rang, and that is number 2 on my list here, where it says RE customer service, this one. I've obscured the numbers because there's some innocent parties involved in this, and and I don't think I'd be doing anyone any favours to give the numbers away. So I rang it. I rang the number she gave me, and all it was another operator at exactly the same service, which was Royal Enfield Roadside Assistance, except it was a different woman. So I had to go through the whole thing, explaining where we were again. And again, she said to me, "Well, we're not responsible for this. Like, what you want to do is ring up Moto GB," which is what the first operator had told me. And she'd then given me this number, but it was just another operator on roadside assistance. She then gave me a third number, which is this one on my notes here. And notice I started to get so fed up that I started to take notes because it was just getting ridiculous. Right, so I rang this number. This was someone in Gloucester who apparently was the importer, but had stopped importing them at 2012, as it says on my notes here. And he was totally puzzled why I'd rung him. And he actually started I won't say antsy, but, what are you ringing me for sort of attitude. And when I explained to him, when it eventually got through to him that it was in fact Royal Enfield roadside assistants that had given me his number, he said, well, someone's having you on. I'm not sure it was someone palming me off, to be honest. I'm a fan of cock-up rather than conspiracy. And I just think these two operators at Roadside Assistance hadn't come across this problem before and didn't know how to deal with it. He gave me at last the correct number for Moto GB, this one. And this is when I started getting some sense out of the system. The bloke at I had to explain everything again. And when it eventually sunk in what had happened, he said, oh, right. He said, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll talk to the dealer, and I'll also get my colleague who deals with insurance matters to ring up Alliance, who are apparently the insurers behind all this, and we'll find out where we stand. And I'll ring you back later. Okay, so I waited. So at the end of the day, it came to 3 or 4 o'clock, still no phone call. But then I did get a phone call. It wasn't from Moto GB, it was from the dealers. And they said, great news, we're going to bring your bike back tomorrow. And I said, well, what have you done to it? And they said they had logged in, they had connected the bike up to the internet. Royal Enfield India had logged onto it, and they were trying to work, and they'd reprogrammed it or something, he said. The bloke who delivered the bike told me they'd plugged into it and were trying to work out what was wrong with it. And I said, and then he asked me, the bloke at the dealer asked me, he said, did you get on to Roadside Assistance? And I said, yes, I did. And he said, well, what happened, sort of thing. And I told him what had happened, how I'd been sent around the houses. And he then said, oh, we're going to waive the delivery charge anyway. So, having told me on Monday it's going to cost me 40 quid, and me having gone through all this performance in the morning, getting more and more stressed out, and during the phone call to Moto GB, my credit on my phone actually ran out, which has never happened before again. The bloke rang me straight back. But you can see how irritating this all is. And then right at the end, which is apparently something I'm supposed to be grateful for, is that they're waiving the delivery charge. Now, call me unreasonable, but when I pay £6,239 for a bike to be delivered to me, I expect it to be delivered to me in working condition with no additional cost as per contract. I don't for the life of me see why I should pay a penny after 2 weeks ownership to have it collected, repaired and delivered back to me so that it was in the condition it was meant to be delivered to me in the first place. A bike that actually works and was not unfit for purpose because it kept on bloody well cutting out. So this whole thing was unnecessary. What do I think of all this? Well, I'll tempting, isn't it? I'm tempting to go off the edge, and just say, it's the whole thing's an absolute disaster. It's just absolutely ridiculous. But I can see that they've got the skeletons of a system in place, but is being let down by the left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing, and various weak links that need a bloody good kick up the arse. Right, to cut a long story short, I had a look under the left-hand side panel. Now, there's evidence that people have been under here before to look at the relays to check they didn't have the grease problem. And I found it only had 3 relays. And every video I'd watched and everything said there were 4. And I had a look at the wiring diagram, and by this stage I am well out of my depth, I promise you. It does appear to only show 3 relays on the Euro 5 wiring diagram, but I'm not in any way qualified to look at these diagrams and relate it to what I'm seeing in front of my eyes. But it seems that I've got 3 relays. I can only see 3 relays on the wiring diagram, so I guess that must be a difference with the Euro 5 bikes. And the bike starts fine, so no complaints there. But it's a bit too cold today to take it for a run. I'm just going to take all this in, and then hopefully I'll get out tomorrow on it just to see that it's going. Well, luckily I've got a Bosch relay, a spare Bosch relay, which I'm going to keep in my pocket in case things conk out halfway around. Because as I say, every video I've seen shows that there are 4 relays, and indeed there's a socket there under my side panel for a 4th relay. It just doesn't seem to be present. Something to bear in mind when you're washing bike as well, actually, because the sockets are pointed straight upwards under the left-hand relay. So that's as far as I've got. I've got the bike back. I've been through this telephone fiasco about who's going to pay for having the bike delivered. And tomorrow, hopefully, provided the weather isn't too cold, I shall be taking it for a run to see whether they have managed to fix it. That's going to be a drama, isn't it? Oh, God. Okay, but I must say, overall, I really like the bike. I'm putting this effort into it instead of just giving it back. Because it's got under my skin now. I really need to get it sorted. What an idiot I am. Okay, thanks very much indeed for listening.